Hey there, everybody. Welcome back. This is our daily Bible reading time. And again, I thank you. I'm so glad for you to join us. And this is day 194 of our daily reading. And we're going to be covering 2 Chronicles chapter 27. And then we're going to jump over again to Isaiah, Yeshaya. And we're going to go through chapters 9 through 12. And again, probably some familiar passages to some of you. But anyway, let's get started here. So if you're ready to go, let's jump in here and let's begin. 2 Chronicles chapter 27. Judah's king Jotham. Jotham was 25 years old when he became king, and he reigned 16 years in Jerusalem. His mother's name was Jerusha, daughter of Zadok. He did what was right in the Lord's sight, just as his father Uzziah had done. In addition, he didn't enter the Lord's sanctuary, but the people still behaved corruptly. Jotham built the upper gate of the Lord's temple, and he built extensively on the wall of Ophel. He also built cities in the hill country of Judah and fortresses and towers in the forests. He waged war against the king of the Ammonites. He overpowered the Ammonites, and that year they gave him 7,500 pounds of silver, 60,000 bushels of wheat, and 60,000 bushels of barley. They paid him the same in the second and third years. So Jotham strengthened his position because he did not waver in obeying the Lord his God. As for the rest of the events of Jotham's reign, along with all his wars and his ways, note that they are written in the book of the kings of Israel and Judah. He was 25 years old when he became king, and he reigned 16 years in Jerusalem. Jotham rested with his ancestors and was buried in the city of David. His son Ahaz became king in his place. And now let's jump back over to Isaiah, Yeshaya, and we will read chapters 9 through 12. Birth of the Prince of Peace, chapter 9. Nevertheless, the gloom of the distressed land will not be like that of the former times, when he humbled the land of Zebulun and the land of Naphtali. But in the future he will bring honor to the way of the sea, to the land east of the Jordan, and to Galil of the nations. The people walking in darkness have seen a great light. A light has dawned on those living in the land of darkness. You have enlarged the nation and increased its joy. The people have rejoiced before you, as they rejoice at harvest time, and as they rejoice when dividing spoils. For you have shattered their oppressive yoke, and the rod on their shoulders, the staff of their oppressor, just as you did on the day of Midian. For every trampling boot of battle, and the bloodied garments of war, will be burned as fuel for the fire. For a child will be born for us, a son will be given to us, and the government will be on his shoulders. He will be named Pele, Yoetz, Wonderful Counselor, El Gibor, Mighty God, Avead, Eternal Father, Sar Shalom, Prince of Peace. The dominion will be vast, and its prosperity will never end. He will reign on the throne of David and over his kingdom, to establish and sustain it with justice and righteousness from now on and forever. The zeal of the Lord of armies will accomplish this. The hand raised against Israel. The Lord sent a message against Jacob. It came against Israel. All the people, Ephraim and the inhabitants of Shamron, will know it. They will say with pride and arrogance, "The bricks have fallen, but we will rebuild with cut stones. The sycamores have been cut down, but we will replace them with cedars." The Lord has raised up Rezin's adversaries against him and stirred up his enemies. Aram from the east and Philistia from the west have consumed Israel with open mouths. In all this, his anger has not turned away, and his hand is still raised to strike. The people did not turn to him who struck them. They did not seek the Lord of armies. So the Lord cut off Israel's head and tail, palm branch and reed, in a single day. The head is the elder, the honored one. The tail is the prophet, the one teaching lies. The leaders of the people misled them and mislead them, and those they mislead are swallowed up. Therefore the Lord does not rejoice over Israel's young men, and has no compassion on its fatherless and widows. For everyone is a godless evildoer, and every mouth speaks folly. In all this, his anger has not turned away, and his hand is still raised to strike. For wickedness burns like a fire that consumes thorns and briars, and kindles the forest thickets, so that they go up in a column of smoke. The land is scorched by the wrath of the Lord of armies, and the people are like fuel for the fire. No one has compassion on his brother. They carve meat on the right, but they are still hungry. They have eaten on the left, but they are still not satisfied. Each one eats the flesh of his arm. Manasseh eats Ephraim, and Ephraim Manasseh. Together both are against Judah. In all this, his anger has not turned away, and his hand is still raised to strike. Chapter 10. Woe to those enacting crooked statutes and writing oppressive laws, to keep the poor from getting a fair trial, and to deprive the needy among my people of justice, so that widows can be their spoil, and they can plunder the fatherless. What will you do on the day of punishment, when devastation comes from far away? Who will you run to for help? Where will you leave your wealth? There will be nothing to do except crouch among the prisoners or fall among the slain. In all this, his anger has not turned away, and his hand is still raised to strike. Ashur, the instrument of wrath. Woe to Ashur, the rod of my anger. The staff in their hands is my wrath. I will send him against a godless nation. I will command him to go against a people destined for my rage, to take spoils, to plunder, and to trample them down like clay in the streets. But this is not what he intends. This is not what he plans. It is his intent to destroy and to cut off many nations. For he says, aren't all my commanders kings? Isn't Kalno like Carchemish? Isn't Hamath like Arpad? Isn't Shamron like Damascus? As my hand seized the kingdoms of worthless images, kingdoms whose idols exceeded those of Jerusalem and Shamron, and as I did to Shamron and its worthless images, will I not also do to Jerusalem and its idols? Judgment on Ashur. But when the Lord finishes all his work against Mount Zion and Jerusalem, he will say, I will punish the king of Ashur for his arrogant acts and the proud look in his eyes. For he said, I have done this by my own strength and wisdom, for I am clever. I abolished the borders of nations and plundered their treasures. Like a mighty warrior, I subjugated the inhabitants. My hand has reached out as if into a nest to seize the wealth of the nations. Like one gathering abandoned eggs, I gathered the whole earth. No wing fluttered, no beak opened or chirped. Does an axe exalt itself above the one who chops with it? Does a saw magnify itself above the one who saws with it? It would be like a rod waving the one who lifts it. It would be like a staff lifting the one who isn't wood. Therefore the Lord God of armies will inflict an emaciating disease on the well-fed of Ashur, and he will kindle a burning fire under its glory. Israel's light will become a fire, and its Holy One a flame. In one day it will burn and consume Ashur's thorns and thistles. He will completely destroy the glory of its forests and orchards as a sickness consumes a person. The remaining trees of its forest will be so few in number that a child could count them. The remnant will return. On that day, the remnant of Israel and the survivors of the house of Jacob will no longer depend on the one who struck them, but they will faithfully depend on the Lord, the Holy One of Israel. The remnant will return, the remnant of Jacob, to the mighty God. Israel, even if your people were as numerous as the sand of the sea, only a remnant of them will return. Destruction has been decreed. Justice overflows. For throughout the land, the Lord God of armies is carrying out a destruction that was decreed. Therefore, the Lord God of armies says this: My people who dwell in Zion, do not fear Ashur, though they strike you with a rod and raise their staff over you, as the Egyptians did. In just a little while, my wrath will be spent, and my anger will turn to their destruction. And the Lord of armies will brandish a whip against him, as he did when he struck Midian at the rock of Oreb. And he will raise his staff over the sea, as he did in Egypt. God will judge Ashur. On that day, his burden will fall from your shoulders, and his yoke from your neck. The yoke will be broken because your neck will be too large. Ashur has come to Ayat and has gone through Migron, storing their equipment at Michmash. They crossed over at the ford, saying, We will spend the night at Geba. The people of Ramah are trembling. Those at Gibeah of Shaul have fled. Cry aloud, daughter of Galim. Listen, Laisha. Anatot is miserable. Madmenah has fled. The inhabitants of Gavim have sought refuge. Today the Ashurians will stand at Nob, shaking their fists at the mountain of daughter Sion, the hill of Jerusalem. Look, the Lord God of armies will chop off the branches with terrifying power, and the tall trees will be cut down, the high trees felled. He is clearing the thickets of the forest with an axe, and Lebanon with its majesty will fall. Reign of the Davidic king, chapter 11. Then a shoot will grow from the stump of Yishai, and a branch from his roots will bear fruit. The Spirit of the Lord will rest on him, a spirit of wisdom and understanding, a spirit of counsel and strength, a spirit of knowledge and of the fear of the Lord. His delight will be in the fear of the Lord. He will not judge by what he sees with his eyes. He will not execute justice by what he hears with his ears, but he will judge the poor righteously and execute justice for the oppressed of the land. He will strike the land with a scepter from his mouth, and he will kill the wicked with a command from his lips. Righteousness will be a belt around his hips. Faithfulness will be a belt around his waist. The wolf will dwell with the lamb, and the leopard will lie down with the goat. The calf, the young lion, and the fattened calf will be together, and a child will lead them. The cow and the bear will graze. Their young ones will lie down together, and the lion will eat straw like cattle. An infant will play beside the cobra's pit, and a toddler will put his hand into a snake's den. They will not harm or destroy each other on my entire holy mountain. For the land will be as full of the knowledge of the Lord as the sea is filled with water. Israel regathered. On that day, the root of Yeshai will stand as a banner for the peoples. The nations will look to him for guidance, and his resting place will be glorious. On that day, the Lord will extend his hand a second time to recover the remnant of his people who survive from Ashur, Egypt, Patros, Cush, Elam, Shinar, Hamath, and the coasts and islands of the west. He will lift up a banner for the nations and gather the dispersed of Israel. He will collect the scattered of Judah from the four corners of the earth. Ephraim's envy will cease. Judah's harassing will end. Ephraim will no longer be envious of Judah, and Judah will not harass Ephraim. But they will swoop down on the Philistine flank to the west. Together they will plunder the people of the east. They will extend their power over Edom and Moab, and the Ammonites will be their subjects. The Lord will divide the Gulf of Suez. He will wave his hand over the Euphrates with his mighty wind, and will split it into 7 streams, letting people walk through on foot. There will be a highway for the remnant of his people who survive from Ashur, as there was for Israel when they came up from the land of Egypt. A Song of Praise, chapter 12. On that day you will say, I will give thanks to you, Lord, although you were angry with me. Your anger has turned away, and you have comforted me. Indeed, God is my salvation. I will trust him and not be afraid. For the Lord himself is my strength and my song. He has become my salvation. You will joyfully draw water from the springs of salvation. And on that day you will say, Give thanks to the Lord. Proclaim his name. Make his works known among the peoples. Declare that his name is exalted. Sing to the Lord, for he has done glorious things. Let this be known throughout the earth. Cry out and sing, citizen of Sion, for the Holy One of Israel is among you in his greatness. May the Lord bless the reading and study of his word.